Hello everybody, and in today's video I'm going to answer, can you be gay and religious? Welcome to the channel. This is a question that I think a lot of people kind of struggle with as they start to try to reconcile their faith and their sexual orientation. As a therapist, a lot of the clients that I interact with and engage with that are part of the queer community have had to reconcile their own religious beliefs that they grew up with and their sexuality. For most of us, and myself included, we tend to be religious and have a religious belief before we even start to even question our sexuality or our sexual identity. So how do we wrap our minds around these two parts of our identity? So before I go any further, I want it to be very clear that this is not going to be a video about theology. I'm not going to talk about theology. I'm not going to talk about what verse means what and why that's okay or not okay, because honestly that's not my level of expertise. My expertise is in relationships and starting to hear our own voice. If you're like me and you grew up in the church, what happens is you start to form some pretty strong belief systems about what queer people are, what gay means, and where you fall in that. And then as you get older and as your sexuality starts to develop, you start to question yourself. And you're like, well, if these people are sinners or these people are bad, why am I having these feelings? You spend a lot of time trying to pray it away. You spend time really confused. It can increase anxiety, depression, isolation. Lots of mental health issues can come from these two parts of yourself, your sexuality and your religious faith beliefs start pulling you in opposite direction. And it's like, how do you find a balance in that? Something that I had to go through. And as I was in my late teens, I became more and more active in church. And I then was also developing my sexuality, and I was being pulled in two separate directions. So what I did in my late teens and early 20s was really embrace my religious identity and really dive into theology and grow, yet I was neglecting my sexual side. And then as soon as I started to embrace my sexual side, I neglected my religious side. And I left the church, and I thought all religion was bad, and walked away from not my beliefs, but the church and everything that came with those beliefs. So it was this back and forth. And what I found as I've done my own work and come to my own place and centered in my own readings, that I think it's living in the balance of the two. Finding an ability to have your beliefs, but then also have your lifestyle. So to answer the question that I posed at the beginning of this video is, yes, you can actually be a gay Christian, a lesbian Christian, a queer Christian. And what it's going to take is for you to do your own research and your own searching for your faith and your identity and learning how to balance them. That is not something that you can get by going to a specific church, reading a specific book, but it's going to be a journey that you have to go on. The fact that you're watching this video right now might mean you're already on that journey. So what I'm going to do is I will share resources I read and I found helpful as I went on my own journey. So first and foremost, find a church. Find some place that you can go to with other people that believe the same thing as you, that are accepting of the queer community. It was difficult for me because I went to a very conservative church, and then a lot of churches that are very queer accepting aren't necessarily as conservative. So that was a shift in my own mind that I had to learn to kind of deal with and learn to be in that uncomfortable feeling of as I transitioned. But finding other Christians who are also queer is very important. There's some podcasts available. There used to be this network called the Gay Christian Network that's actually just changed its name to be more inclusive, called Q Christian, and that is a great resource to find local churches, blog posts, and other articles, and they do a yearly conference that's really kind of amazing that you'll be able to go to and experience a bunch of things. Some helpful videos is Matthew Vine did a video that I'm going to link to right here that talks about his own view of coming out as gay and how he reconciled his Christian beliefs. He has a book that's out that's called God and the Gay Christian, and I'll link to it down below. And he breaks down a lot of the theological verses and explains what his view or his interpretation of those are and where that comes from and how it's based in history. So if you're interested in more of the theological, that is a great book as a resource to be able to read, to start to connect your faith and your sexuality. Justin Lee, who actually started the Gay Christian Network, he wrote a book called Torn. I really like that book because it's less about necessarily theology and more about how you can grow up as a Christian and then still accept your sexuality and what does that balance look like. He talks a lot in that book about defining the different levels of theology and how you can fall into any different categories. The big thing I like from that book is it's all about open communication with people who might disagree with you, and learning that we can all be a level of one faith. You can learn to accept your faith and accept your sexuality. So that's a really good book. So the last book I would recommend is called The Cross in the Closet. I'll link to Tim's TED Talk that he talked about his experiences. This book was really cool because he is a straight guy who came out and told his whole friends, his family, that he was gay, and he lived in the queer community for a year, and it really changed his view of the queer community as a queer Christian, and it is an amazing experience. And I think that if you're heterosexual and you don't understand a queer lifestyle or what it's like to be queer, this is a great book written by a straight man on living in the queer community. So that's a quick video on can you be gay and a Christian? Of course the answer is yes, but it's a matter of learning to live that balance. So that means you're going to have to do reading to reconcile your faith and your sexuality and learning to live in that balance. If that's something you are struggling with, I would highly recommend seeking out a LGBT-friendly, queer-friendly therapist in your community. They can help you kind of hear your inner voice and learn to accept both parts of yourself, your faith part and your sexual identity. If this video was helpful, go on and leave a comment below. And if you have any other resources that could be helpful, leave them down below. I'd love to be able to add them to my website that lists a bunch of articles and books that can be helpful if this is a topic that you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching this video. Go on and hit that subscribe button down below, and go on and give it a big like and share it with anybody that you might be interesting. And come back every week for new videos on this topic and others. Bye.